Hello and welcome to Golden Orb Studios. Today I'll be showing you how to make Angry Birds inside of Unreal Engine. So when you open it up, there's the pigs and there's also the bird, and you can pull that back and you can see that it estimates where the bird is going to go. So you can see it just follows the line, and once it hits stuff you can see it damages it, and if you break it then it makes the breaking sound. And everything has physics, so it works just like the Angry Birds game with the physics. All of these blocks and the bird and the pigs and the slingshot and also the sound effects and the particle effects, those are all free. However, the stylized environment that you see around is my stylized landscape pack. On Gumroad it's $5, and I also have it on Patreon on the pro tier, and that's only $2 a month, plus you get all the other packs as well and all the benefits you can see here. So go ahead and check that out if you want to have a cool environment like this. So instead of wasting time importing everything, I've already just done it for you. And you can download the UE5 project. It just has all the static meshes and all of the sound effects and all that. It doesn't have any of the blueprints because that's what I'm going to show you how to do. You just need to extract and unzip the file. And then once that's done, you can open that up. And then just double click on this and it'll open it right up. So it will start you off with this, just a blank landscape. And the first thing that we need to do is go up to edit and then editor preferences and then drag that over there. And then we also want to get project settings. And then first in project settings, I'm going to type in mouse, and I already have it ticked here, but you just want to make sure that use mouse for touch is ticked. So that's all good. That'll let us be able to drag and use the mouse for the slingshot. And then in here I'm going to type mouse in the editor preferences, and I want to tick game gets mouse control. So I'll click that, and what that does is when you press start, you no longer have to click on the screen for the inputs to start working. They'll just start working automatically. So let's close out of that. And then the next thing that we're going to do is go to blueprints, and we're going to get started with the slingshot. So first I'm going to click on blueprint class, and I want to get character, just a simple character, and I'm going to call this slingshot BP. So then just double click on that, and on the capsule component I want to click add, and then I want a spring arm, and then off of the spring arm I want to get a camera, and then off of the capsule component again I want to get static mesh, and then I'm going to rename that to slingshot. And then in the static mesh over here I'll select the slingshot, and for the location I'm going to do -86, and rotation I'm going to do 100. And then with the slingshot selected I'm going to type in arrow, and this is going to be the starting point. So I'm going to call this launch position, and I'm just going to drag this up and a little out, so it should just be between the rubber pieces. Next we're going to go to the event graph, and I'm just going to delete all this, and then actually I want to get event begin play, and I'm going to add a custom event. I'm going to call this action mapping, and then I'm going to drag this over here. Then I want to go to third person blueprints and then the third person character, and I just want to copy this stuff right here. So I'm just going to copy that code and then paste it in right here, and then I'll drag this over here. And so on event begin play I want to get action mapping, so I'll just call that and just keep it nice and organized. Next I want to get the player controller, and then I want to set show mouse cursor, and I'm going to set that to true. Next I'm going to come down here, and then I'm going to right click and type in input touch, and then it's just the one on the bottom right here. And then I just want to create a couple variables. So the first one I'm going to do should predict question mark, and then also can shoot. And should predict should be marked as false, and can shoot should be ticked as true. So on pressed I want to hold down B for branch, and then I want to get can shoot because I want to see if I can shoot while I'm touching the screen. And then off of here I'm going to set should predict, and then I'm going to set that to true because now I should be predicting the path now that I'm dragging the bird around. Next I'm going to drag off of here and get mouse position on platform. Then I'm going to drag off of here, promote to variable, and then rename this to click original position. And then I'm going to hold down B for branch and plug this in, and I'm going to drag this off, promote to variable, and call this auto zoom question mark. And I'm just going to leave this as true for now. And I'll come back to this in a little bit, but for now I'll just keep it like this. And then on released, I want to get should predict, so I'm just going to copy and paste that and then untick that. And then there's more code to do here, but before we can go any further, we need to create the bird blueprint. So I'm going to go to blueprints and then right click blueprint class and then actor. And I'm going to call this red BP. So I'm going to open that up. And first I'm going to get a sphere collision and I'm going to call this red physics. And then I'm going to copy and paste this and drag it on top. And then I'm going to rename that second one to red collision. And then with the red physics selected, I'm going to select static mesh and then I'll choose the red. First I'm going to get the red physics and just drag it up so that it's on top of this right here. So I want that to be the base. And then the static mesh, I'm going to drag that down and I want to scale up the sphere radius. And then I also want to scale up the collision, and that needs to be about the same size as the bird. And then I'm going to scale up the collision, and that needs to be a little bit bigger. And then the physics needs to be basically the exact same size as the bird. So that's looking good. And the reason that I'm doing them in separate ones is because it was having trouble colliding with the wooden blocks and it wasn't doing anything. But when I did this, it was doing stuff. So I'm not sure why I was doing that, but doing it this way makes it work. So next I'm going to get the static mesh and I want to scroll down, and on collision I want to do no collision, and on red physics I want to simulate physics, and then I want to scroll down, and then for collision presets I want to do custom, and I want to block everything except for the world dynamic. And then for red collision everything's the same, so we don't need to change anything. And then back to the static mesh, I want to change the rotation to -180, just so it faces the correct direction. Next, I'm going to go down here and just save this really quick, and then go back to the slingshot, and now we can continue with the rest of this. So next, I'm going to come up to event begin play, and I'm going to get the launch position, and then get the world location, and then spawn actor from class. Next, I'm going to right click on spawn transform, split structure, and then plug this into the location and plug this into here. And for the class, I want to do red BP, which is the bird, and then off of here I want to promote a variable, and I'm going to call this just red BP. And then off of here I'm going to type in get red physics, and I have to scroll all the way down here to get red physics, and that's getting a reference to this right here. And I'm just going to set simulate physics to false, because the very first one that we start is just going to be for looks, basically, just so you can see it inside of the slingshot. So then back over here, then I want to get red again and scroll over here, and I'm just going to copy this, and this time we're going to set it to true. So I'm going to set simulate physics. So when we pull back, it's going to set the should predict, and it's going to get the location of the mouse, and then when we release, it's going to stop predicting, and it's going to simulate physics. So next, after we set simulate physics, we need to add an impulse, so that way it fires. So off of here, I'm going to add impulse, and I'm going to split the structure, and then I'm going to get red physics as the target, and then double click to get a reroute node, and then shift click and then Q just to straighten that out. Next, I want to play sound 2D, and the one you want to get is this one right here. So I'm going to do that one right there. You can also import your own. This is just a free asset, and here are the credits to all of the sound effects and the GUI, so the interface, the buttons, and then also some textures, and then also the Angry Bird and the pig I didn't make, but here is the person who did make it and the credits for that. I did, however, make all of this stuff though. So next I want to get can shoot and set that to false because I don't want to be able to shoot right now, and I want to get a delay of 1. So next I want to come up here and then copy all of this stuff and then paste it down here because we want to do that again. And then after this I want to set can shoot and then set that to true. So after we draw back and then release, we want to set simulate physics to true, and then add an impulse, which will fire it, and then play the sound, set it to you cannot shoot for 1 second, and while we do that, we bring another bird onto the slingshot and make sure that the physics are turned off, and then we can set it so that we can shoot and do it again. So after that, we have to set up the cam predict, because right now it's not going to do anything, and we also don't have it in here yet because we still need to set up the correct camera position and all that. So next, I'm going to click the browse button right here, and then you can drop it into the scene, and I'm going to go into details and rotation. I'm going to do -90, so that way the arrow is pointing in the correct direction. And for the camera, I'm going to come back to the slingshot and open this up, and then in the spring arm, I'm going to rotate it by -90, and I'm going to do 720, 0, and then 290. And then for the target arm length, I'm going to do 1298, and then I want to disable do collision test. So the next thing I want to do is click on the slingshot and then type in possess, and auto possess player, I want to do player 0 and make sure this is placed in the world. So now if I click play, I can control this, and I need to go into the slingshot and select that, and then scroll down and then set that to no collision. And the capsule component, I want to go to the collision for that and then set that to custom, and the only thing that I want to collide with is the world static. And then in the red BP, in the red physics, you want to make sure that in the collision, set this to block all, and then do custom and deselect world dynamic, because it needs to make sure that collision is enabled, querying physics, and world static. So that all looks good. And then back in the slingshot, I want to go to event graph, and then next I want to get event tick, and off of that I'm going to hold down B for branch and then plug that in. And then I want to get should predict, because this is on event tick and we're setting the should predict in here, so that way it's not going off on every tick. Next on true, I want to get the mouse position on platform, and then I'm going to scroll out and I'm going to go to the impulse, and off of impulse Y, I'm going to promote that to variable, and then impulse Z, I'm also going to promote that to a variable. So next I'm going to set impulse Z and then also impulse Y. So I'm going to plug those in, and then off of return value, I want to subtract, and then on the bottom, I'm going to get click original position. So this is going to find out how much we're dragging, because we're getting the current mouse position, and then we're getting the original. So we're getting the origin, and then also all around that. So then off of here, I want to split the structure, and off of Y, I want to go directly into Z, and then X, I want to multiply, so I'll type in multiply, and then I'm going to multiply this by 4, and this just determines how powerful it is, so you can make it higher or lower depending on how powerful you want the slingshot to be, and this is just one of the factors that can affect the power. So then this is going into impulse Y, and then off of here I want to predict projectile by path by trace panel, and the start position, I'm going to get the launch position and then get world location, and then I'll just plug this into the start position. And then for the launch velocity, I'm going to right click and split structure, and off of here I'm going to go into Y, and then off of this one I'm going to go into Z, and then I'll double click on these just to make that more organized. So then it should look like that, and I'm going to change the projectile radius to 2, and then I'm going to change the sim frequency to 10, and then max sim time to 1, and draw debug to 0.01, and then the draw debug type I'm going to do for duration. So if I click play, you can see that it's working, and wherever I drag, there is the line predicting where it's going to go. And then something I realized that needed fixed afterwards is if I try to drag up, this is the highest it'll go, and that's kind of annoying. So if I copy this and then control and drag on these, I can take this and drop it in here, and then plug this in here, and I found 2 worked pretty good. So if I multiply that by 2, now I can go up higher, And if I set that to like 5, then that goes even higher. That's a little extreme though, so I'm just gonna change that back to 2. And then over here, we're gonna create a actual thing instead of just the debug, because that doesn't look very good. And we also need to add the projectile, because right now it just flops. It doesn't do anything. So out of here, I want to get a for each loop, and if you just hold F and click, then you can get that. So I'll just plug that into there. And then off the loop body, I want to spawn actor from class. And then I want to split structure and the array element. I'm going to plug this into here. So for each of the dots that you could see before, that's where it's going to spawn one of these dots. So we need to go create that dot. So in our blueprints, I'm going to do blueprint class and then actor. So I'm just going to call this dot BP. So I'll open that up, and what I'm going to do is add a sphere, and then after locking this, change the scale to 0.2. And I also want to come down here and set no collision, and in event graph on event begin play, I will hold down D for delay, and I'm going to change this to 0.05. And then after that, I want to destroy actor, because I want this to stay updated with every time I move, because every time I move, the dot positions are going to change, so it needs to constantly be deleting itself. So back in the slingshot, I'm going to change this to dot BP, and then I'm going to change the draw debug type to none. So then on play, you can see that we have our dots, and you can see that if I change this to like 0.3, then it would be pretty laggy, but if I change this down to like 0.01, then you can't even see it because it's deleting itself too fast. And right now it's flickering, so I found the best to be like 0.04 or 5, so I'm just going to keep it at that. So then we need to take the impulse that we have here and then put it in the impulse when we fire it. So then that's right here, and this is all set up correctly. The only reason it's not working is because I forgot to select velocity change, so that'll allow the impulse to work. So now if we click play, you can see that it follows the line exactly. So just for the basics, this is looking pretty good. Everything's working right and everything's launching correctly. The only thing I forgot to do, you can see how it's rolling over there. It's supposed to only be on this one line, and you see it's all the way back there. So what we need to do is go to red physics, and in the physics we need to go constraints, and I want to constrain this to the X. So now if I do this, it'll just stay exactly on this plane. So that's working pretty good. If you want to make it look like this, then check out the link below for my Gumroad or Patreon. It's cheaper on Patreon for the Pro tier, only $2, and you get all the other stuff with it as well. And I also have video documentation as well as written documentation on how to set up this auto landscape material, as well as with all the foliage. And you can also use it with a bunch of other different games. And I'm hopefully going to be coming out with some more updates with it, with some more models and stuff for the Stylized Landscape pack. Alright guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure to watch out for part 2, so I'll see you guys next time.